Friendships never go out of style.
Oh, you're the best friend anybody's ever had, and it's funny, but I feel as if I've known you all this time, but I couldn't have, could I? If you're not over here, in 15 minutes, you can find a new best friend. Welcome to the Best Friends Playbook podcast.
With your hosts, Crystal
And Allie.
We've known each other for over 27 years, and we're here to share our wisdom on friendships in film, TV, and literature.
Grab some coffee, our favorite, and get cozy.
Welcome to another episode of Best Friends Playbook podcast. I'm Allie. I'm here.
I'm Crystal. I'm here. Oh, I just hit my desk. Sorry.
Oh, good job. So we are doing an episode today, very different than our past episodes. We're basically discussing, can males and females have a platonic friendship, or will it always end up in a relationship? And then obviously now it can be more trickier, since there's could gay friends end up being in a relationship or not? But we're just mostly focusing on male and female relationships. Yeah. So, but I think it all, yeah, exactly. We're both straight girls, so it's what our experience comes from. But I think at the end of the day, the rules could potentially apply to everyone, but who knows? So Crystal and I both watched our own select handfuls, and we're just gonna talk about our theories on this and use the films that we watched as evidence. Obviously, films are fictional, and the writer wrote them to have a certain outcome. But I hope that those writings reflected personal experiences potentially.
Hopefully. I don't know. Some of them I watched and I was like, that seems really stupid. And then some of them I was like, I've been in that experience before. So
yeah, there was also like one of the movies I watched was My Best Friend's Wedding. And there's some questionable things that he says to Julia Roberts' character that I'm like, that's not okay as a friend.
Really? Okay, I'll be honest. I've never seen that movie. So anything you tell me is going to be brand new to me.
Oh, exciting.
Tiny little bits back in the day, but I have zero recollection. All I know is Julia Roberts is in it.
Yeah, it is a really cute film. You should watch it. You can rent it on Amazon Prime. It's actually a lot better than I remember. And I liked that, spoiler, they don't end up together. And it actually, I feel like, reflects friendship in a very interesting way compared to most rom-coms.
So it's a friendship between a male and a female, and they do not end up together.
Yeah, and they have a very...
Hook up?
Yeah, so let's just get into it. So they met in college, and they dated for 1 month. But Julia Roberts' character, Julianne, she broke up with him because she said she got bored. So typical young person, I'm getting scared of my feelings, so she ended it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it cuts to 9 years later of them being best friends. And she's sitting down she's a food reviewer, and she's sitting down at a restaurant with her editor, who's also her gay best friend. Mm-hmm. And she says, Michael just called me, and he has something really important to tell me. And she tells her gay best friend that a couple of years ago, they went to a cabin, and he said, hey, by the time we're 28, if we're not married, we should marry each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's 28. He's about to turn 28. So she thinks that this call is about them needing to be together. So all of a sudden, she's like, holy crap, I've actually been in love with him my whole life. I shouldn't have let him go. Cut to, he's like, I'm getting married and I want you to be in the wedding. And so it takes place over the 4 days of this whole wedding happening.
Uh-huh.
And Julia Roberts' character, her whole mission is to break them up. And she's doing crazy girl things, actual crazy girl status things to try and break them up. Mm-hmm. She found out that his fiance, which is Cameron Diaz, her dad owns the Red Sox, and the guy she's in love with, Michael, he does sports reviews, so he travels a lot but gets paid for shit. And she tells Michael, are you sure that Kimberly doesn't want you to leave your job and come work in this job where you can be at home all the time and you're not traveling, you make tons of money and she lives comfortably? And he's like, no, she would never ever do that to me. So what does she do? She goes and tells Kimberly, hey, you should have your dad ask him to do this favor because look, you're giving up everything. You're giving up architecture school. Like, you should get to have something too. So then the whole thing happens. They get in a huge fight. And then she's like, I'm sorry. The fiance is like, I'm sorry, I should have never done it. And they start to cry and they forgive each other. And Julia Roberts is like, how is this still not working? So she continues to keep sabotaging like the whole 4 days.
Mhm.
And then her gay best friend comes and he's like, you just need to say that you love him and move on. And she's like, I can't. So she then pretends that her gay best friend is her fiance to try and make Michael jealous. So another tactic is now employed, which Michael, you can tell he does get jealous. And he tells her later, but he's like, it's so weird. And he's like, can we just hang out for the day? So they go like on like this like cruise ship in Chicago. And he says something like, you know, Kimberly always says that if you love someone, you should say it. Otherwise, if you don't say it, then the moment just passes. So obviously the writers are like, okay, here's this moment to say it. And Julianne's character still totally like chokes and doesn't say it. So I kind of wonder if, like, I don't really know if Michael was trying to test her in that moment to see if she was going to say it, because these two have a song and their song is The Way You Look Tonight. But he doesn't have a song with his fiance.
Okay.
So there's already like a lot of inappropriate stuff going on. There's like a part earlier in the film where she goes to get dressed. She goes to get a fitting for the maid of honor dress because Kimberly's like, I want to make you maid of honor. And which is also weird. And he goes to bring her the dress in her fitting room, but she's like in a bra and underwear and she freaks out and covers herself. And he's like, I've seen you before. And she goes, well, that doesn't mean you should see me now. And as he's walking out the door, he's like, you look great. Undressed, by the way. And it's like, platonic friends don't say that. No. So what I got from the end of this is because eventually she says she loves him. They kiss. And like at this time, the wedding is off, but he's saying that he still wants to marry Kimberly and Kimberly wants to marry him. And Julianne's still trying to sabotage, but she's honest and she says, I love you. And they kiss, but then Kimberly catches him. So he chases Kimberly and she's chasing Michael and she's calling her gay best friend as she's like in this bakery truck that she stole to try and catch him. Mm-hmm. And her gay best friend is like, no one's chasing you. He hasn't chosen you. Like, you need to move on from this. Yeah. So they finally get to the train station where he thinks that Kimberly is going to be because that's where he proposed. She tells him all the terrible things that she's done. And it basically comes down to a metaphor is that she is fungus. Like, that's how, like, beneath the human race she went this weekend. He's like, but I love that you love me that much to try and do it. He's like, but I want to be with Kimberly. So I feel like in this friendship, because when they broke up, he cried and he said, I'm losing my best friend. And she cried too. So I think that like in these 9 years, he was probably hoping that she would eventually say, I love you and commit, but she never did. Yeah. And I think that I think a part of him still loved her, but he wasn't in love with her anymore. And he was in love with Kimberly. And so he moved on. But he still really cares about her, which is why he has a tendency to do these inappropriate things. And then the nice thing is that Julianne goes out of her way to find Kimberly and say to her, like, yes, I kissed him. Yes, I did the horrible thing. But guess what? He chose you. I want you guys to be together. Like, I'm going to be a better friend. So I feel like, yes, for this movie, male and female can be platonic friends. There may be a blimp where someone likes the other person, but if you really are friends in the first place, you're going to find a way to get over it and be happy for that person and accept that, like, this ship has passed and they're happy and you guys can still have a friendship.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about that, though. Like, I don't know if I really believe that.
I think that now that he's married, I don't think they can necessarily be friends the same way they were. And
it's weird if he's like seeing her try on clothes and weird things like that, you know?
Yeah, so that would have to stop. And I would say if I was Kimberly, we all three need to be friends. And I don't really want you hanging out with her alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because like I used to have really close male friendships before Dave and I got together. But once we got together, I was like, I don't really need those male companions in the same way anymore. And I think that's kind of another thing about like when you're that close to a friend that is the opposite sex, I feel like you are kind of leaning on them for stuff that you would normally get in a relationship. But once you're in a relationship, you don't need that stuff anymore to that extent.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because like the main movie I watched that I felt was really important was When Harry Met Sally, right? So
yes. So let's take us through it in case our audience hasn't watched it.
Well, hold on. Let me just preface what I was going to say, which is I think you just went out. Your audio still on?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It went really quiet. Sorry. So in Harry Met Sally, like for people that haven't seen it, great movie about friendship. They do not hook up at all for like 10 years. But like Harry always has like these little, what would you say, like blips about life, about friendship, about men and women. And one of the ones he says is that that like men and women can't be friends because like if they have a significant other, then that person is always going to be jealous of, you know, like if I have a boyfriend, he's always going to be jealous of that guy. But at the same time, he's going to be wondering like, what am I missing that she is looking for in that guy? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very similar to what you just said, where either way, something is not clicking, you know, like either, you know, no matter what, there's something wrong on either side. Because then the other guy, the friend, is probably like, well, you know, what does that person have that I don't have besides sex probably, but I'm sure there's other things to think about. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But anyways, let's just talk about When Harry Met Sally. Freaking amazing movie. But they like meet, she's like, they finish college, University of Chicago, and they have to drive they drive to New York because they're both moving to New York, and he's dating her friend at the time. So anyways, just him and her drive to New York, and in this 18-hour car ride, they have all kinds of discussions about friendship and dating and just life. They're totally opposites. Sally's really positive. He's really negative. He thinks men and women can be friends. He does not think that at all. He says that guys will always want to have sex with you, you know, and he, at first he's like, you know, if it's an attractive woman, yeah, of course, we're always going to want to have sex with you. And she goes, what about the unattractive woman? He's like, well, we bang you too. So it's like, it doesn't matter. Like either way, a guy just wants to bone any girl. Right. So, anyways, they like finish that car ride and then they don't see each other again for 5 years down the road. And then they just keep running into each other every 5 years. And one of them is like in a relationship, or like, I think in the next 5 years, he's getting married and she's just starting a relationship. And then in the next 5 years, he's getting a divorce from that lady. And she is, I think, just finishing like the same relationship, like they had just broken up. So anyway, they're going through different points in their life, and they don't really become like really good friends until that point, like 10 years later. And then it just kind of follows them for that year or so where they're friends. But it's like, it's the same thing. It's kind of like an awkward, I think it's better in the sense that she's not like trying on lingerie for him like they do in the other movie I watched, Maid of Honor. She like straight up tries on lingerie for him, which is... Oh,
yeah, that movie has a lot of issues. Like,
it does have a lot of issues. If I had to compare these two, I have this one here too. This is like a bad version of this one. Like it's not a terrible movie, but it's not a great movie. And because it is very similar in the like friendship stuff. You know, they don't hook up ever, and he's a playboy and whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, these two like become best friends, and they even like send each other on dates and stuff and blah, blah, blah. Eventually they hook up and it ruins their friendship, and then they get together at the end of it. So that's the gist of it. But
yeah, and that movie's interesting because it literally is testing their points of views as characters. Like she thinks you can be friends, he thinks you can't. And so that's pretty much like the thesis of that movie, testing out that theory.
Yeah, it's a great commentary on just friendship and people in general. yeah, he says things like, no man can be friends with a woman he finds attractive. And then even, like I said, even the unattractive ones, they can't be friends with because they do want to have sex with them, right? He also makes a point right before he's about to get married, and she's like kind of shocked because he was always kind of a playboy and was very negative about life in general, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm getting married. But he like hints that he's really only getting married because he's tired of like the single life and dating. And so it's like,
it's just that's not why you get married.
Yeah. And it's weird because I have had friends that have literally said that to me. And I'm like, what? That's like not why you get married. They're like, yeah, it's just time. And I'm like, that's not a reason. Like that is like the opposite of why you should get married, but side plot there. But
yeah.
Let me see. I'm just reading my notes here because there's another good one.
For sure.
Oh, another thing he says, a little nugget. I don't have to lie to her because I'm not trying to go to bed with her. Right. So like, which is I would think, not being a male, I could see that. I don't know if that's totally true, but I do feel like when I have had friendships with guys in the past that I thought was platonic, at the end of the day, it wasn't. And when I found that out, I was thinking like, well, were we ever really friends? Were you always just trying to get with me? Like, were you lying about these things or whatever the case is?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good point.
Yeah. It's hard because like Billy Crystal's character in this, I think a lot of things he says are him having intimacy issues because he clearly doesn't have them with Meg Ryan's character. He's able to be himself. And if he had just realized if he could be himself, then like he might be finding someone.
Yeah.
The other thing with that movie is that these two don't stop relying on each other for their emotional needs. So like even when they're in relationships, they're still talking to each other. And I think that's also the problem, is that they're not trying with the people they're actually dating.
Yeah, they're still having that emotional connection.
Yeah, and they forget that like they had to work on their friendship to get to a point where they could even have an emotional connection. Therefore, they should be putting the work into their current relationship to see if it can actually work. And I think that they're just choosing to not, and that's why they're still attached to each other.
Yeah, it's a very symbiotic relationship, I'd say, and they do really rely on each other for things. But it's funny too, because she's not very emotional. He makes a comment at one point when he's freaking out because he ran into his ex-wife, and he's like, does anything ever affect you? Like you don't ever seem to show emotion. And after that she does. But I don't know. She's just an interesting character because she's very closed off, I'd say, if I had to say anything about her.
Yeah, she is. She's very like a reserved person who feels like she has to act and showcase herself a certain way to the world, rather. Like they both have intimacy issues, and they both don't like being vulnerable, which is really funny.
Yeah. I did also it's like I said, it's just good commentary on like the way men think and the way women think. Cause they're like, there's this one scene where they're both walking, like she's with her friend and he's with his friend, and they're walking to like meet for a blind date. Like she's trying to hook up her friend with Harry, and Harry's trying to hook up his friend with Sally. And on this walk, the girls are talking about like, I really want you to find, a boyfriend, but at the same time, I feel like it just kills our relationship because when women find, their significant other, the friendships kind of fall by the wayside because all you want to do is spend time with them. And then over here, the guys are talking about, the one guy is like grilling Harry. You said she's attractive. Well, she is. Then why aren't you dating her? Well, because I don't know. We're just friends. But you also said that she has like a really good personality. Yeah. But if she has really good personality, she can't be that attractive. And it's like their whole conversation is just like, is she hot or is she not? And she can't be like, she can't be enjoyable if she's hot, kind of a thing or something like that. It was very odd. Is this really what to talk about?
Exactly. Yeah. So they're creating like more of these hurdles for themselves than are necessary.
Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like for men care more about looks initially always. Whereas women care more about like what happens after, like the relationships that wayside afterwards or don't, so.
That's a good point. Yeah, because that like makes me think about
women think long term, men think.
Yeah, this is like more relationship based. But if you've ever watched Sex and the City, one of the characters, Charlotte, she was married to like this really handsome, charming man, and he was a total like douchebag to her. And then she meets this other guy who's bald.
Isn't his name Harry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's bald, and I think he also has like a lot of hair on his body, like in random parts.
Like short and fat.
Yeah, and she hates like just everything that he does, and she doesn't find him attractive, but she loves him.
Yeah.
She loves him because she loves how he cares for her, like he loves her for who she like. And that's the thing, like at the end of the day, like people always say looks fade. I don't think looks fade. I think that looks turn into something else. They turn into more like everyone's always initially physically attractive for someone first. But I think eventually over time, like you just love them so much that like they're always going to be attractive to you no matter how their body changes because of the love that you have for the person that they are.
Yeah, I would also argue that for like friendships that turn into a relationship, right? You may not find them physically attractive in the beginning, but you end up loving them for who they are and their inside, right? So that makes them attractive on the outside later on. So
yeah, exactly.
About looks.
Yeah, but I think the love has to be there. Otherwise, you will never be attracted to them. Because like I had this one friend in high school that I worked with. We were really good friends, and I would hang out and play video games with him all the time. And he liked me, and I had no idea. I thought we were just friends. And his friend would get mad at me because, like, this kid kind of had, like, a little bit of a hunchback. And he was like, you don't like him because of that. I was like, no, it absolutely has nothing to do with that. I just don't see him that way. Like, I don't emotionally connect with him on a romantic level, and it has nothing to do with his looks. And his friend was like, yes, it is. And he kept being like a dick to me about it. And it really frustrated me because I was like, the emotional love has to be there. Otherwise, like you'll never find that person ever attractive. If it's platonic, like it'll always be platonic.
Yeah, I would say that's like my main issue or argument is that I, as a female, I have had plenty of friendships where they're platonic on my side, right? And I don't see, that was always my line. I don't see you that way, whatever. But then later on you find out that this person maybe did like you or was just waiting around to see if something would happen, right? And I don't know, it's just interesting because I feel like women can separate it and men can't, is kind of my feelings on it.
Yeah. Cause I actually like, I don't know if guys can, cause like, I think that there's like, especially if you're going to have a really, I guess, deep relationship with that person. Like I had this one friend growing up where we dated in high school. And then like a year after high school, we became friends again. And he had a girlfriend, but he couldn't open up like emotionally to her, so that he would call and bitch to me about all the fights they got in. And she hated me because he would talk to me about stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that liked me because we've talked like, yes, we tried dating like 3 years before that, and he was a total piece of shit and he knows it. But I also think that like, we didn't make sense that way. And he felt more like a brother to me. And I think he also felt like I was a sister, but I still think those are very rare occasions. But I also don't talk to him anymore because I don't need that
emotional connection.
Yeah. Like obviously if something happened to him but again, we don't talk anymore. I think that if we talked maybe more on a regular basis in a less serious way and something happened and he needed me, I'd be there for him. But like, he's not the person I need for that stuff anymore because I've been with David for 8 years. So he's the person for all that. And most of my guy friends now are like, they're my actor friends. So we discuss actor things. And then we have friendship evolved beyond that. But most of my guy friends, I go, hey, boo, I think in my mind, I immediately go like, you're a brother, or you're just, there's nothing there. So I call you my boo because you're like a friend.
So you touched on a good point, though, when you were talking about the guy back in high school. I think that, this is just my personal opinion, that women, when there is those kind of platonic friendships, but then there's a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend involved, I feel like the women are over here jealous of the emotional connection, right? They feel like their husband or boyfriend is relying on that female for advice or emotion or spilling their guts out to them instead of them, right? So that makes them jealous. Over here, guys, I feel like are just jealous because they feel like if their wife has a friend that's a guy, that guy wants to get in her pants. Any guy I've ever talked to has always agreed with me.
So funny. It still goes back to that then.
It totally is. Like women care more about the emotion and guys care more about the sex, right? So
yeah.
I mean, just totally generic statement there. I'm not saying whatever, but that's just how I feel from my experiences. So
yeah, I feel like that's true because like most of the guy friends that I had where I thought we were friends, it would later come out that they were like you said, they were hoping that it would turn into something like
that. Was all of my guy friends in high school. Like I just friends, and that sounds really slutty or like I'm full of myself. There wasn't that many, but there was a couple guys that I was friends in high school over the years, and then I found out later on or through whatever that like they were either hanging out with me, waiting around for it, or they did like me, and just it took them however long it did for them to say something, and then I was like, and then I always said, hey, I don't see you that way. And I would also get pissed because I felt like they were ruining our friendship, They were pissed at me because I said no to them. But I was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought we had like a real friendship here. So,
yeah. Because now that like we are in relationships, I still think that you can have opposite sex friendships, but they're just very different. And I think that obviously once guys see that you have a boyfriend, then they're less inclined to, then they like turn it off or something. I don't know. Like, I guess it's annoying that when we're single, they can't even begin to see us as a friend in the first place. And I don't know if it's because in high school, their hormones are going like crazy. So all they can think about is sex. But yeah, I feel like I had the same experience in high school. It's like, you find out later all these guys were just interested in if whether or not they could sleep with you. Yeah.
And it's so funny because you're totally oblivious to it in the moment.
Yeah.
And after the fact. I would say that now as an adult and a married woman that has been in a relationship for like 10 years now. So all of my guy friendships now fall into like two main categories. Work friends. So people that I've met at work, mentors, like people I train with at karate or whatever, people on the work side, or people that are like either my husband's friends originally that became my friends, or my girlfriend's boyfriends or husbands now that we've just, and it's not like I hang out with like her husband by ourselves. I'm just saying like when we hang out together, we are all friends and we are
like,
all,
you're my buddy. Yeah.
Like I'll be on text chains with like my husband's friends. Not me and him, but other people, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a group friendship almost. So those are like the two types that I have now. There's no emotional connection to them, but I rely on, these work friends for mentorship a lot of the time, or just talking about things we like talking about or whatever. So nothing emotional,
Yeah, I feel like those are my two categories also. And like my work friends, which are usually like my actor friends that I met on set, or they're people that I see in like a regular job that I do. We have bonded over the work that we do. And so like, for example, one of my friends, Campbell, he's also like 7 years younger than me. So he's just adorable little baby. And me and my friend Kayleen all three of us met on set on the same day. And so we had like really long, like 15-hour days. So like, yes, we talked about acting, but eventually that gets really stale. And so he just became like our little brother that we would pick on and tease him because he just made it so easy. And so I feel like it's just because I spent a whole month working on a show with him. And and that's where that grew and stuff. And then he's also like, whenever I hang out with him and Kayleen, David also comes, and he's met them. Or like one of my friends, Xavier, I did a short film with him, and he was the director, and he has a lot of tech skills. And so now David's texting him all the time because he's going to do tech for our Dungeons and Dragons show. And I like that because it's now just our friends all being like interspersed together, you know?
So that's what I was going to bring up is like, I think what I'm wondering is those experiences that we had in high school versus now in these friendships. Is it entirely just age and maturity? Like, is that what it is? Because the older we get and the more mature we get, the more we don't, I don't know.
You know what I would like to do?
Like, I don't understand. Like, we want them to be in a group now, right? We don't want to.
Yes. So you know what I would like to do? We should have one of our friends guest. Like, we should do a part 2 of this episode and have one of our single friends guest, so that they can talk about their experiences with this. Because you and I have been in a relationship for 8 to 10 years. So we don't know what the single dating world with male friends is like now.
Yeah, but I don't have any single friends. Like, all my friends are old and married and having babies now.
I have a small few, so I can try and ask them to come on. Like, I could ask my friend, especially because she lives in New York, and she always talks about how she needs to move because I think I said this in another episode, but like, she's been through all the Brooklyn boys. Not in a slutty way, more of she's lived there for 10 years. And so the pool knows them all. They all are in relationships now. Like, I remember even there was a Sex and the City episode where Carrie even said that she'd been in New York for 10 years. And she's like, there's no one new. Like, who am I supposed to date? Like, because that's how the dating life is. You go on like a couple of dates with someone and then that's awful. So then you go on another, like you get through the dating pool when you're single.
And I feel like a city like New York City, right? 8 million people or whatever. At least that's what this movie said. This was in the 90s. So I'm sure it's way more now, right?
Yeah.
Was it 90s or 80s? I don't remember.
I think it was early 90s because there's 80s fashion tendencies in there, which I know you love so much.
Well, and it goes through different decades. But yes.
Yeah.
So however many people are in New York now, I feel like in a big city like that, people will say, I've been through all the guys, but I don't think that's true. I think you've been through all the guys in your like friend group and your outer friend group, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
because unless you're actively going like out to somewhere, not anywhere close to where you live and going on like blind dates or like what's it called, the dating app websites.
There's Tinder and Bumble and
unless you're doing those or you're going to like active speed dating things or whatever, you're probably only really dating people in your like friendship group and your outer friendship group, right? So
yeah. Well, then I think we also hit this tech wall. I wonder if they purposely put people in front of you that like know each other or live in the same neighborhoods. Then that sucks that the app does that to you because it's blocking all these people you're unaware of.
Well, I feel like that I've never been on one of those, but I feel like there has to be an algorithm in there that goes like, well, this person's within 10 miles of you. So these are your best options within 10 or 20 miles. So
yeah.
And you might have a random mutual friend here or there kind of a thing. So
man, I wish we had like more followers. I really want like a Tinder tech person to come on and explain this to us.
Wow. Well, you swipe one way, if you like them, swipe the other if you don't, right?
Yeah, my old roommate, she would let me swipe for her just because I was like, oh, this is like a game. You should date this person. No, don't date this person. Ooh, date this one.
Yeah, and it's all based off of how they look, right? Isn't that the entire?
There's also profile stats. Like it says like where they live, what their job is, and then they can have like a favorite movie or TV show or a quote or something.
They're really basic. Like it's more about how they look initially for this one.
Yeah, and then Tinder links to their Instagram, and so then you can click on that, and then you can see their Instagram to get like more stuff. But yeah, it's very visual.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on this other movie because
yes, you watched it.
This used to be your movie, remember?
Yes, and I gifted it to you. I still really enjoy the movie. It's problematic, but I still think it's cute.
So here's the funny thing is romantic comedies are entirely made for women, in my opinion. Well, 9 out of 10, really.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge romantic comedy fan. I like girly movies. I'm not gonna lie. And I had seen this before, but it had been so long that I did not remember it. And I didn't really like it that much. It was just a little too out there in as far as like the grand scheme of how she met him and how ridiculous he was, his family was, and but the thing that really irked me was their relationship, right? Because like they met in college. He like drunkenly stumbles into her bed thinking it was her roommate and wants to hook up with her, and she obviously freaks out or whatever. And after they become friends, and he's like a massive playboy for however many years after it takes place. I don't remember. But they like show them hanging out together, and the one thing that I felt was odd to me was the way in which they hung out almost made him seem like a gay guy. Like they would shop together. He would watch her put on lingerie for the guy that she ended up meeting, right? And just these other, I can't remember what else, but they go out to dinner and family events. But it was just weird because when they were together, I didn't even like feel that chemistry. It felt like he was gay. So it was kind of odd because I wasn't like rooting for them really. And I was like, I don't know any straight guy that would want to go shopping with me. I can barely get my husband to go shopping with me half the time. So
yeah, they did play it. I feel like they were trying to make it seem like that's how close they were, but I feel like they weren't doing a good job of explaining how close they were. Cause like, I want to use this for comparison. So, if you've watched Grey's Anatomy, we have Meredith and Alex Karev, who are best friends. They do a really good job because like Meredith has no boundaries. And so she'll go into the bathroom where Alex is taking a shower to bitch about something going on. And he will keep yelling at her and be like, you need to leave. Like, this is my space. And she's like, but she's so focused on like what she needs to talk about. Like, she doesn't even care that he's in the shower.
Well, it's very clear that she has never had any kind of sexual attraction to him. Like they never hook up, right?
Exactly. But they never hook up. But they're still, the show is at least realistically showing how girls and boys act towards each other and that they want their privacy versus in your movie, like any straight guy, if he saw a girl trying on lingerie or took her shopping, like they would be mean, they would be bored, they would be sexually attracted to the lingerie trying on. Like that's just not realistic.
And I also feel like it's not realistic. Don't get me wrong. Like I'll bash guys all the time if they're stupid or too obnoxious. Right. But so it was annoying that like they're showing him looking at her in lingerie. It's also annoying that she was doing it. It was like, you're getting married. Why are you putting on lingerie and showing another straight guy, even if he is your friend?
Yeah.
Like,
that's super inappropriate.
Like you're asking for something. Right. So it was just kind of odd on both sides to me. I'm like, girl, why are you doing this? And why are you there? Kind of thing. So
also like Michelle Monaghan's gorgeous. So if you're going to try and play it that like he only dates gorgeous girls, make your lead actress way less cute.
Yeah. Get like a cute, but not hot girl, you know? So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are like my main problems with it. I don't know. It was okay. It was good. I like that two of the guys from Grey's Anatomy were
I honestly think that's why I like watching it, because I just think it's funny that McDreamy and Owen are in it.
Yeah, and I feel like was this movie before Grey? Maybe it wasn't.
It was before Owen was on the show, but Patrick Dempsey was already on Grey's.
Yeah. By the way, side note, have you seen a picture of Patrick Dempsey lately?
No, does he look...
I just saw a picture of him. It was like an ad on social media or something, one of his race car things. He looks like he is like withering away to nothing. Like, is he dying of something? He looks.
I know that when he got fired from Grey's, he was going through a divorce and he was drinking a lot.
He looks bad. Like,
so he
used to be really hot, and now.
Yeah, he could be not taking care of himself.
Yeah, it does not.
Or he could be
sick or something.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, doesn't necessarily mean people got rid of their bad drinking habits.
True.
Yeah.
It's bad though.
But yeah, so I guess Alex and Meredith, I feel like they work because they are work friends. They do eventually talk about deep stuff with each other, but it's only because that show is so dramatic and they've been through life and death with each other and experienced some terrible things. But they also go to each other for like relationship advice, but they do it in a very specific way. Like, I feel like if you go, like, whenever, before I was with David and I would have guy friends, I'm like, why is a guy acting like this? And like, if those guys were my friends and like weren't trying to get in my pants or didn't actually like me, they would be like, that's just because he doesn't care, he's a dick. Like, they're just straightforward about what it is versus like, you deserve better, which is a very way of being like, I want you sort of a thing. And so I feel like with Meredith and Alex, they had that very like, cut the bullshit. Like, this person's acting this way because of this reason, and you need to go fix it and be with them.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing.
I feel like guys will just like tell you straight up what the problem is or what you should do differently, whereas women kind of tiptoe around it, you know. You are so nice and you are a good friend, instead of being like, no, you kind of are being a bitch right now, right? Like, most friends aren't going to say that to their friends.
Mm-hmm. And you're asking that guy for advice because the guy you like isn't making sense, and you as a girl don't understand, so you want a guy to tell you what guy language means. Yeah. And I think that if a guy is your friend, he's just going to, cut straight to the point rather than trying to like prove that this guy's bad for you. Yeah. And then like I looked at Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson. They're also work friends, and they're really adorable because Leslie loves wanting to improve the community and likes working for the government. And Ron Swanson is a libertarian and he hates the government and he wants them to not be involved in his life, but yet he has a government job. So it was really about them having to understand how to work together. And through that, they taught each other a lot of things, and then created a friendship and cared for each other because of that. But the way that they fought, it was never like a sexual tension thing. Leslie just really wanted to be good at her job, and they just always strictly kept it to that. And so I feel like, I don't know. I feel like when you know what you want out of life, and when someone's also I don't know, maybe it was also because they just weren't attracted to each other. I don't know.
I feel, because I also covered 30 Rock, Liz Lemon, and Jack, right?
Yes.
Another great example, especially because when I first started watching that show years ago, I'll admit, I like really wanted them to be together. And I'm disappointed when they didn't in the end. And then I look back now and I'm like, no, I can see like there's never really an attraction. Mm-hmm. They even joke that he's like her work husband. He jokes that she's like a little brother to him. Yeah. Right? And they rely, like Liz kind of relies on him for like mentorship. He really does work at like trying to improve her life professionally and what's the word I'm looking for? At home, like her home life, her
personal life.
Her personal life, yes. Yeah. Personal was the word I was looking for. And I don't know, I like it because they don't ever like even get close to hooking up, and the kind of like awkward times where they have to either fake be together or almost do not actually like kiss or anything, but like they get stuck in a bed together at one point, right? Even those kind of weird moments, it's just so funny and so awkward, and they definitely have zero attraction to each other, so it makes it okay. But once again, that's a entirely work relationship.
Yeah, and especially because like he's also her superior, which is nice that they didn't write it to where he takes advantage of her and they date or something. Yeah. But yeah, I think like you said, we already have like our categories of male friends now are work friends, and then our husband or partners like friends, and then they just all interact at that point.
Our friends, partners.
Yeah.
Girlfriends.
Yeah. So I think that you don't really need those type of relationships anymore. But you can still be friends. It's just not like as deep as they used to be. And I think that comes from simply being single and needing something until you get an actual relationship.
Yeah. I will say one of the like things that always irks me, and it does for Jason too when we watch movies or shows, is when like people put themselves in a situation and then they end up hooking up, right? And it's like, why, like, they do it in fucking When Harry Met Sally. Why did she was crying about the one guy, her ex was getting married. In the middle of the night, she calls him crying. And I'm like, why aren't you calling any of your girlfriends? Like, why are you calling him to come over? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they hook up, and then that ruins their friendship, you know? So, and they always do that in shows. And I'm like, I don't understand why, as a female or a male, you would ever put yourself in that kind of situation. Like, you're just asking for it. So.
Yeah, and I think that she probably called him because she was lonely and she wanted something out of it. I mean, I feel like that's what it was. Otherwise, you would call your girlfriend and vent to them about what's going on because you just need someone to make you like feel better in the moment.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I've never had that experience where I feel the need to call a male friend.
I mean, I've even gotten to a point where like I struggle to talk about my issues with my girlfriends because I have David for everything.
Yeah.
So by the time I see one of my girlfriends, I'm like, well, I was in a really distressed state last week, but I'm okay now because I talked it out with David. So,
yeah.
I mean, and so there's that thing too. I think like the most I talk like with my girlfriends now is like some of my friends have anxiety. So we both go through like this, we understand where each other's coming from when we have bad days or bad weeks. So then we kind of go into depth talking about that. But otherwise, like, I have him for everything.
Which is how it should be, I feel like.
Exactly, yeah. So
relationship, you are discussing all those emotional feelings or whatever your issues are. If I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what your like boyfriend, husband, or partner. That's what they're for.
Like I like when I have girl nights, with my friends. Mm-hmm. But 9 times out of 10, I'd rather be hanging out with Jay. Like, I'd rather go out to dinner with him or stay here and watch something with him. So,
yeah, because they've become also your best friend.
Your best friend. Like, I want to hang out with him, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I think a good relationship, that's pretty normal, I would think. So,
yeah, like, people are making jokes about how people are breaking up during quarantine. And I'm like, I would hope that whoever you decide to be in a relationship with, that like you enjoy being in quarantine with them. Yeah. Like, obviously everyone needs their space once in a while. So like, David told me, he's like, I just want to go on a walk a couple times without you since we're in a small space. And I'm like, okay, go for your walk. Like, I totally get it. But we're not like at each other's throats sort of a thing.
Yeah. I have a friend that is a divorce lawyer. And she's like, it is higher than it's ever been right now. Like, we have to turn people away. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, my mom works for a divorce attorney, and she's doing fine. She's like, my hours are great. They're not gonna fire me.
And it's so funny too, because my friend is like, yeah, when people call, they don't realize that like, even if we do help you, it's gonna be, I don't know what it is, 9 months to a year or something where you're like even really divorced. So it's very interesting. But
I know. Hopefully they can work it out before we're like released fully into the wild. Yeah, but I think that I think from what we found from our evidence is that once you're in a relationship, if you have a platonic friendship, it is work based, and then if it is anything deeper than that, it's because you both almost died in a plane crash, or I don't know, you had life-threatening things happen to you like they did on Grey's Anatomy.
But even with Alex and Meredith on Grey's Anatomy, it started as work. Mm-hmm. Then it became like roommate friendship, right? Because they lived together for so long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that whole time they're still working together. It's entirely like based, and I almost feel like it becomes more brother-sister than anything else.
It's very brother and sister. Like, she knows Alex is a slut, but she doesn't say anything because she doesn't care. Therefore,
that's really, she was at the beginning, so it's like
exactly. So like, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't care because she's not jealous. She doesn't like him that way. It's also not affecting how she lives.
Yeah. She doesn't judge him because she was just as slutty in the beginning.
Yeah, they were like, it's funny. I feel like they're very similar to each other, which is, I think, why they were both so drawn to being each other's friends. Mm-hmm. Because they have like that one scene, I think it's in season 1 or season 2, where like, she had just slept with George, and then he got caught for cheating on Izzy. So they both feel like awful. Yeah. And then Izzy gets mad at her. And she's like, what? Like, I just saw that he was feeling the exact same way I was.
Yeah. I feel like Meredith always takes in the strays anyways, right? So that's how it started with them.
Yeah. And you know, obviously both of them had like a sleeping around problem, but there was something where I think in their friendship, they saw in each other that like not a lot of people liked them, and they just wanted to have someone who accepted them for who they were that wasn't like sexually involved with them.
Yeah. And I always like to make it psychological based. They both have like severe daddy issues.
Oh yeah, they do.
I mean, and not only, I mean, she definitely has mommy issues too, but
yes, he has mommy issues too though. Remember his mom is like schizophrenic or something, and he had to take care of her his whole life.
I like vaguely remember. I mostly remember that he like beat the shit out of his dad and like left. So
no, he has major mommy issues just like Meredith.
The mom thing happened after I stopped watching though, then I don't know. Because I'm getting his mom confused with Izzy's mom. So I remember
Izzy's mom is just more like obsessed with like psychic readers and all those like.
Oh, she was more like a friend than a mom too. Like
yeah, but no, they do talk about Alex's because when Izzy is going crazy and seeing Denny and she doesn't realize it's her brain tumor, Alex is freaking out and like really wants to take care of her because he felt like he couldn't save his mom.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Did they ever show his mom though?
They do.
See, I can't recall.
It happens in way later seasons.
So then I probably didn't see her.
Yeah. Yeah, that is funny that like their issues, like they completely reflect each other. So maybe he's like the male version of Grey's in the show.
Probably. I mean, yeah, they do have very not similar backgrounds, but similar issues because like the environment in which they were raised was very different.
And then I'll just talk about this really quick. So like, we were saying this with Harry Met Sally. There's another movie that I watched a couple months ago called Love, Rosie. And these were two friends that met when they were kids. And as they're growing up, they keep having these opportune moments where they can say they like each other, but then the other person doesn't respond in a specific way. Like at one point, one of the guys was like, so-and-so wants to take me to prom. And she's like, oh, well, I have a date. And he's like, oh. And so he didn't get the response of like, you want to go with me or something. So then they keep playing like this back and forth, like tug of war game.
Yeah.
So much so to the point that like he's about to get married and she's the maid of honor, or she's like in his wedding and she's like totally upset. And eventually they end up together, but she doesn't say anything at that wedding because she doesn't want to ruin it for him. But with theirs, I think it's different because before he got married, he had sent a letter to say he wanted to be with her, but she was with an abusive, like super controlling husband who found the letter and he hid it. So once she finally broke up with him, that's when she finally saw the letter, and that's when she wanted to say she loved him. And then she's like, I can't do this to him. Like, if this is like what he wants, then I'm just going to let him live his life. And then she goes and finally opens up like her own hotel, and then he shows up on the day, and then they insinuate they get together. So that I think for them, they've been friends, but because they were like, obviously they should have spoken up and said something sooner, but at least it wasn't like in My Best Friend's Wedding where she was trying to like sabotage it.
Which isn't a good friend, by the way.
Exactly. So I liked that these two were always really good friends to each other, and they were always in the back, like still wanting to be with each other. And so I feel like theirs at least was a much more healthier version than when Harry Met Sally, because she actually did like, she wanted to be with him, and then he was dating another girl, so she moved on and married this other guy. but then he ended up being abusive. So of course it like wasn't going to work out. So like these two characters did actually really try and like live their life separately. And so I think that was more of a story about like serendipity, about these people were always meant to be together because they kept trying to actually have real relationships. And it wasn't like they kept finding ways to not be together or something.
Yeah, I feel like it's different though, because in Harry Met Sally, like she has zero attraction in the beginning, and she like makes a pass at her that night, and I don't know. There's a little. They never like declare any kind of love for each other for over 10 years. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting though. Like, I feel like rom-coms, if they are a way of writers trying to figure out like, can people be friends or not be friends, and what does that mean, and all that.
Apparently, I meant to bring this up in the very beginning when you were talking about, what was the first movie you were talking about?
My Best Friend's Wedding.
Best Friend's Wedding. Was that, apparently this, I'm going to preface this and people are going to hate me, but I don't hate Seinfeld. I'm just not a huge fan to where I've seen every episode, right? I've seen some episodes and they're good, but I don't go out of my way to sit down and watch it, right?
I'm not a Seinfeld obsessor either. We were friends. Friends was on at the same time, and I think we just went the Friends path.
Well, yeah, and Seinfeld was a little before, but I don't know. Friends always just appealed to me more. But even nowadays, I will sit down and watch Seinfeld with my husband because he loves it. But it's never something that I've gotten into and had to watch every episode, right? But I've seen enough of it to where I always thought that Seinfeld and, oh my God, what's her name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character. I can't remember.
Yeah, Elaine.
Are friends. And then Jay told me, because I don't think I'd ever seen the very first episode, that like they had dated at one point and then broke up and just became platonic friends. So it's a great example of it working out, but I didn't even realize that. So,
but it's funny because like him and Elaine are friends, and from what I haven't seen the whole scope of the show, so I could be speaking completely out of turn. But what I have seen is that they're not like super in debt, emotionally embedded in each other, like the way when Harry Met Sally are. Like they bitch and moan about dates, but I feel like that's very different than like being super vulnerable with your emotions.
Yeah, and I feel like Seinfeld is another one of those like situational comedies more so than anything. I don't feel like they get very emotional in any episode, you know? It's always more about a situation or like a life experience that they deal with, right? So
yeah, but I mean, you can still be. I mean, I guess it depends too, because they're very like lighthearted in that show. So I was gonna say, for example, New Girl, they get very emotional, even though it's strictly a comedy show, but they get emotional about the comedy.
Yeah, I would say that's a less. I don't know. It's like less situational in the sense that it's not a sitcom. It's not like in front of an audience kind of sitcom.
Yeah, it's a little more serialized, even though it's still sitcom. It's still considered a sitcom.
Yeah, and it just the type of comedy that it isn't as based around situations as it's more based around the characters. I feel like, you know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So they do get more emotional and
yeah. I mean, that's a good show we can touch on really quick. I mean, Jess ends up with Nick in that show, but she never becomes friends with Schmidt. She never dates Schmidt or Coach or Winston. And she's roommates with them. And also the guys like never want to sleep with her except for Nick once they start having feelings for each other. But none of them were like...
I feel like her and Nick always had a thing in the beginning though, right? Like a slight...
Yeah.
Like they kind of set it up in the very beginning.
Yeah, but I felt like it always came from like an emotional place versus like sexually attracted.
Yeah. So then, but what I would argue then is, was there nothing between her and the other guys because Nick always had that like tap tap, if anything happens, it's going to be me with Jess kind of a thing? Or is it really just that there's no attraction and she's just their roommate kind of thing?
I would say there was zero attraction because Nick never like admitted to the guys or even showed or made it obvious that he was into her. Coach finds her really annoying. And so she goes out of her way to like be friends with Coach.
Yeah, I think some of them. But overall, I just feel like I got to argue the guy's side here. That probably, like, Schmidt probably would have boned her if he got the chance.
Yeah, Schmidt was also, Cece came into the picture, and so Schmidt, I feel like, didn't even see Jess, and he was like, Cece.
That's true. That's her friend, right? So.
I think that's actually why he said she could move in, because he heard that she had model friends.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Mm-hmm. But Schmidt does end up like relying on Jess for a lot. So I think they all grow into a friendship, but at least the guys never grow into wanting a relationship with Jess.
And to be fair, in my opinion, most of the guys in that apartment are rather feminine.
They are.
So it's like, it's a little different than, I don't know, other comedies, because they are just like so in touch with their feminine side. So
yeah, like even Coach, he tried to
both ways. They could have ended up all gay.
Yeah, like Coach tries to
shocking. It wouldn't have been shocking at all, right? So
yeah, like Coach tries to act like he's a womanizer, but he's actually like a huge dweeb. And Jess even like gets him to open up and cry and stuff. And he's like, "Why are you doing this to me?"
And Schmidt is like the super metro kind of guy where it's like, you could, I wouldn't be shocked if you came out at some point on this show, kind of a thing. And
yeah, exactly. And then Winston's just weird.
Yeah.
He has his cat issues. He sleeps with random women he just meets. And when wait, what?
But he's very feminine to me. Like,
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he sleeps with like this really like big bus driver. When I say big, I mean she's like not fat. She's like big and burly and muscular and at least like a whole foot taller than him. Like,
it's funny.
Winston's so funny. Yeah. Well, I feel like we kind of covered everything for that whole argument. I think what it comes down to is like, once you're not single, you have your work friends, and then you have your boyfriend or husband's friends, and that's kind of where it lands. But we just don't know what it's like for single women right now.
Yeah, it's really funny because I used to have this argument with Jason because he was the one that was always very adamant. No, guys are not friends with girls. Like it is not possible. They will want to sleep with you. And I was like, no, there's no way that's true, And now I don't know if it's just age or really taking the time to sit and think about it and watch these things or what. But now I'm kind of siding with him. Like, I feel like you can have like a couple, like not a lot. I'm not saying like every work guy friend I have was totally platonic. I'm sure some of them wanted to have sex with me or something, but I feel like the really good friendships that I still have are platonic because they have like met Jason or like it was all work-based or mentorship.
Yeah, it's almost like a shield comes up and they go, oh, we just can't feel that.
Yeah, I feel like and maybe it is an attraction thing, right? Maybe they're not attracted to me. I don't know, but and vice versa. And then they meet my husband and then we all become friends kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like you really can't be friends. Just like platonic, random friends anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like you can either. It's like you can't be friends with them in a way that you're friends with your girlfriends.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if I call my guy friend and cry to him.
Yeah.
Right? It's definitely weird to me. Now, if he's a gay guy, totally different. Like that's
gay guy, different. Yeah.
But straight guy, that's weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not straight. So it's like at some point, I think that you're cheating.
Yeah.
I feel like so.
Exactly. I don't know. Yeah. I agree with that. If someone wants to prove us wrong, they can. I mean, like, this is like, I'll just pull this one up really quick. Like, in One Tree Hill, we had Lucas and Haley. But I feel like him and Haley always forgot about each other when they were in relationships.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which then totally disappeared from each other's lives when they were.
Which then goes to show that, like, they put their relationship first, which is why I think they really were friends. And whenever they did talk to each other and got really heartfelt was when they were having relationship problems. But I feel like Haley acted like a really good brother type, and he acted like a really good sister to her. So it never became this like sexual thing. Even though when I first started watching the show, I was rooting for Lucas and Haley. And then eventually I was like, oh, no, I like them as just friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there will always be like, I don't want to be like, hey, somebody prove me wrong. But I do feel like there are outliers out there, like random.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you had been a dude, right? And we had maintained this friendship all of these years, and I was in the relationship I'm in now. And you, as a guy, was with a girl for 8 years. I feel like maybe that could work. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there has to be like both the people has to know that like they just don't ever, it's not even a want, it's that it shouldn't happen because it's such a terrible idea. Like, I think that's what the feeling has to be. Because like it grosses you out as if it was like your brother or sister. And I'm going to bring a psychology thing to you that's totally going to creep you out.
Oh God.
There was an article I read, and there's been a ton of psychology done behind this, where this woman was adopted and she wanted to find her birth parents. She didn't find her birth parents, but she found her brother and I think her sister. And because her and her brother did not grow up together, they became supercharged, sexually attracted to each other. And
Ew.
She ended up leaving her husband to be with her brother. And a doctor said that the reason why you're not sexually attracted to your siblings is because you grow up with them from birth. And this chemical reaction happens in your body that makes you not sexually attracted to them. And therefore, when you meet, if you're adopted and if you meet your platonic brother or sister at an adult age, there's a high chance that you will be so sexually and drivenly attracted to them.
Ew.
Yeah.
That's gross and weird.
It's super gross and weird and cringy. And it's also weird that our brains teach us to, like, our biology teaches us to do that from a young age.
Well, you know why? Because it's like your DNA and your biology is, the whole point of human existence is to like make more humans, right? So
yeah,
if you're attracted to your brother, your humans are going to come out, with like deficiencies. So
I think you're also taught that like your brother's gross and he's annoying and he's also family. And that's
I'm talking
weird.
on a biological level, like
gotcha.
That is like the human race trying to survive. Like, no, you physically should not be doing that with your sibling because this is what's going to happen, So
yeah, exactly. But, and then we have like Cersei Lannister and her twin brother.
Oh, you haven't even seen that show. See, you're just going off of what you heard, right? So,
no, I've seen some of the scenes because I would like watch them over David's shoulder.
And it's like so disgusting because it's like
it's horrifying.
We're in a room together. We were born together. She's the only person I've ever been with, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. So, and if you like
children with him, it's weird.
Yeah, and they were also probably raised really differently. Like, they didn't probably have like a typical brotherly sister bond. So then they I don't know, they created sexual tension at a young age and weren't taught that it was inappropriate.
I don't know, but it's disgusting and cringeworthy, and I've never seen it so odd on a show. So.
Yeah. So maybe sometimes when you have a friend at that young of an age, it can help repel you guys from ever being attracted to each other, potentially.
Yeah, I feel that's what I'm saying. Like if it was a guy and one of us was a guy, I feel like because you're friends from such a young age, it could be that way. I've also seen it totally opposite. Like if you want to talk about Sweet Home Alabama, like they're friends as kids and think they're, at least one of them likes the other as a kid, and then they like end up together in high school, and then they break up, and then they end up together at the end, right? So like so one of two ways. Exactly.
You never know. So who knows? Let us know in the comments and give us a review, please. We would love a review from you. We'll shout you out on our Instagram if you do. We'd really appreciate it. And any final closing thoughts?
Next 2 episodes, Harry Potter.
Big deal, guys.
The big HP.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm like in the depths of book 7 right now, and it's still like part 1 of the book. Of the movies. Like you know how the movies are split into 2 parts. Yeah. So.
Yeah, get on that, girl.
I know. I'm almost done. I'll be done. I know. I'll be done by the time we need to record.
Okay.
I think I'm just like stretching it out because I love it so much and I don't want it to end.
I did do that when I got to book 7. I was so hard into it, consistently listening all the time. And then when hard things would happen or if I knew something was about to happen, I'd like slow down listening.
Yeah, it's like I need a break. It's too much.
I don't want to get there. I don't want to finish it.
Yeah, I like right now, Harry, Ron, and Hermione just got taken to the Malfoy Manor.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, because stupid Harry said Voldemort.
Beginning of all the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. I know, which is what makes it even more sad.
Mm-hmm.
I know. There's just so much in the books that aren't in the movies, and it really breaks my heart.
Yeah, I had never like done it this way before, where I like read a book and then watched the movie to compare, like after each book, watch the movie. And I have to say, it really kind of ruined some of the movies for me, as far as just the amount of content not in there and the amount of subplots they took out. And I understand you can't have everything in there.
Yeah.
But I had never really like sat down and compared it like that before, and it kind of made me sad.
Well, and the biggest thing that like Dave and I have talked about, and also a bunch of like video essay people on YouTube, is that there's a lot of flashy stuff in the movies that does not need to exist. And if you took all that out, you could add 1 or 2 more character scenes that would actually give the story way much more depth than these flashy scenes you're doing.
Oh yeah, there was one, I don't remember if it was like the beginning of 6 or 7, but they're like flying over London on the brooms, you know?
It's 5.
And yeah, okay, 5. And as
I just watched
Jason's
it, that's why.
and Jason's never read the books, right? So he's like, I have to explain each movie to him entirely after we watch it. And we just like, that's that opening scene or whatever, and we're watching it, and he goes, I don't understand what's happening. And I go, I don't really know either. This isn't in the books. Like, just go with it.
You know what we could have done in that moment is spent the time with Tonks and Harry packing up his stuff and getting to know Tonks.
Yeah, I know. Because
way better
scene. So little in that. And yeah, he was like, explain this to me. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, it looks cool. It's just supposed to look cool and get you excited for the movie. Like,
exactly.
Fly over London to have these cool shots and make it look exciting. That's
well, and the thing that bothers David, he goes, if they're going to fucking show them flying, why don't we see them land? They just cut to them being there. Therefore, you shouldn't have the flying scene. It makes him so angry.
I know.
Yeah. All right. We'll save all these wonderful Harry Potter things for you guys in our last.
We're going to talk about it so much. It's going to be like 5 episodes.
I know, right? I mean, this episode's pretty long, so they got a lot from us.
I know.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for watching and listening. I can't talk. I posted this on our Instagram. Obviously, we are on all the podcast sites, platforms. But if you want to watch our beautiful faces, we are on YouTube, and I linked to that in our Instagram. So you can also just watch us sitting here talking to each other in our living rooms.
Yeah, my living room.
Right? I love that room.
My books.
So cute.
Harry Potter, right? Or no, there's Lord of the Rings right there.
Yeah.
One from Harry Potter, and then Harry Potter's over here.
I love it. Yeah. So you guys can hang out with us too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening. I don't know what to say anymore. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
She's my friend because we know what it's like for people to be jealous of us.
It's so nice when you can sit with someone and not have to talk. You and I are a team. Nothing is more important than our friendship. Thank you for listening to the Best Friends Playbook podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
You can also email us episode suggestions at bestfriendsplaybook@gmail.com. And if you could please leave us a review on iTunes, it helps us greatly to grow our podcast.